You cancel plans and feel guilty, but staying home feels safer. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" and your throat tightens. You say yes, even though you're not. You sit down to rest and your chest feels heavy, like you're forgetting something, like you should be doing more. These aren't random quirks. They're echoes, fingerprints left behind by a childhood that asked too much of you too soon. When you endure a lot as a child, it doesn't just live in your memory, it rewires you. It installs reflexes you didn't choose, and decades later, those reflexes are still running in the background, quietly shaping how you move through the world. Let's talk about what happens to people who grew up too fast, who learned early that safety wasn't guaranteed, who carried weight no child should carry. Because if that's you, you're not broken, you're adapted. And understanding that difference changes everything. Childhood is supposed to be a time when the brain develops in the presence of safety, play, and consistent care. But for some, childhood becomes a training ground for survival. And survival mode doesn't care about long-term wellness. It cares about making it through the day. Psychologists call this toxic stress, not the normal stress of a bad grade or a scraped knee. Toxic stress is prolonged, unpredictable, and unmitigated. It's the kind of stress that floods a developing brain with cortisol and adrenaline over and over, with no reliable adult to buffer it. The brain adapts, it has to, but it adapts for survival, not for happiness. Studies show that chronic childhood adversity can alter brain structure. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulating emotions and planning, develops more slowly. The hippocampus, which processes memory, can actually shrink. This isn't weakness, it's neuroplasticity in action. Your brain made you excellent at detecting danger. It made you fast, alert, and emotionally perceptive. It kept you alive. But those same adaptations can make adulthood feel exhausting. When you're a child in an unsafe or unpredictable environment, you learn quickly. You become a student of mood, tone, and silence. You develop strategies. Some children become hypervigilant. They scan every room. They read every face. They learn to predict danger before it arrives. They become the family radar system. Some become peacemakers. They soothe the anger. They absorb the tension. They learn that if they can just stay calm enough, kind enough, useful enough, maybe the storm won't come. Some children disappear. They become quiet, small, invisible. They learn that the safest place is nowhere, that needing nothing means risking nothing. And some become people pleasers. They twist themselves into whatever shape feels safest. They ignore their own needs, their own feelings, their own pain, because their survival depends on someone else's approval. These strategies work. That's the tragedy. They work so well that you carry them into adulthood long after the danger has passed. But here's what no one tells you. The skills that saved you as a child can sabotage you as an adult. Hypervigilance becomes chronic anxiety. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Calm feels like the pause before disaster. Your body never fully relaxes. Peacemaking becomes self-abandonment. You're so used to managing other people's emotions that you forget you have your own. Conflict feels unbearable, even when it's necessary. You say yes when you mean no. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. Disappearing becomes emotional numbness. You've spent so long protecting yourself by feeling less that now you struggle to feel at all. Joy feels muted. Connection feels distant. You're present, but not really there. People-pleasing becomes identity loss. You shaped yourself around so many people's expectations that you're not sure who you are underneath. You feel like a mirror, reflective but empty. And the worst part? You blame yourself. You think you're too sensitive, too anxious, too much, or not enough. But you're not. You're just still running software designed for a war that ended years ago.
Underneath all of these adaptations is something deeper, something harder to name. Shame. Not guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Children are meaning-making machines. When bad things happen repeatedly, they search for explanations. And because children are egocentric by developmental design, they often land on the same conclusion. It must be me. If my parent is angry, I must have caused it. If my home is chaotic, I must deserve it. If I'm not protected, I must not be worth protecting. That belief doesn't go away just because you grow up. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself. It shows up in how you receive compliments, how you tolerate mistreatment, how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Shame isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the voice that says, of course this didn't work out. What did you expect? It's the feeling that everyone else got a manual for being human and you didn't. And it's exhausting. This isn't speculation. The research is overwhelming. The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, one of the largest investigations into childhood trauma and adult health, found that people with high ACE scores were significantly more likely to experience depression and anxiety, substance use disorders, chronic physical conditions like heart disease and diabetes, difficulties in relationships and employment, early death. The more adversity someone experiences in childhood, the greater the long-term impact across nearly every area of life, not because they're weak, but because the body keeps the score. Trauma isn't just psychological, it's biological. It lives in your nervous system, your immune response, your sleep patterns, your digestion. But here's the critical part. Correlation is not destiny. Yes, childhood adversity increases risk, but it doesn't remove agency. Healing is possible. It's hard, and it's not linear, but it's real. And it starts with understanding what's happening inside you.
Let's bring this back to the everyday moments, the ones that don't feel like trauma, but are. You get a text that says, "We need to talk," and your heart races. You spiral for hours. When the conversation happens, it's nothing. But your body didn't know that. You make a small mistake at work and spend the rest of the week convinced you'll be fired. The criticism feels like confirmation of something you've always suspected about yourself. You finally have a calm weekend. No crises, no demands, and instead of relief, you feel uneasy, like something's wrong, because your nervous system associates peace with the calm before the storm. You lie awake, replaying conversations, analyzing tone, wondering if you said too much or not enough, searching for proof that you're safe or proof that you're not. This is what unresolved childhood trauma looks like in adulthood. It doesn't always look like flashbacks or breakdowns. Sometimes it just looks like a life lived on high alert. Your nervous system was shaped in an environment where danger was real, so it learned to treat subtle cues, minor conflicts, tiny uncertainties as threats. A raised eyebrow, a delayed text, a change in routine. These things wouldn't register as dangerous to someone whose childhood felt safe, but to you, they trigger the same physiological response as actual danger. It's not that you're overreacting, it's that your body is reacting to a memory, not to the present moment. Psychologists call this a nervous system mismatch. Your environment is changed, but your internal alarm system hasn't updated. It's still scanning for the dangers of your past, even when they're no longer present. You're not broken, your system is just out of sync with your current reality. Here's another layer. Sometimes you recreate what's familiar. People who grew up in chaos often feel uncomfortable in calm relationships. They might unconsciously seek out drama, not because they want pain, but because predictability feels strange. Chaos feels like home. Others become controlling. If your childhood felt dangerously out of control, adulthood might become an endless effort to control everything, your schedule, your environment, other people's perceptions of you.
And then there are emotional flashbacks. These are different from memory flashbacks. You don't see images or remember specific events. You just feel sudden shame, overwhelming fear, crushing sadness, and you have no idea why. Because the feeling isn't about now, it's about then. But without the context, you search for explanations. You blame your partner, your job, yourself. You create a story to make sense of the emotional storm. But the storm isn't new. It's old, and it's been waiting. So, what do you do with all of this? First, you name it. You stop pathologizing your responses and start contextualizing them. You say, this reaction makes sense. I was wired for a world that no longer exists. Second, you learn to differentiate past from present. When your body signals danger, you pause. You ask, is this threat real or is this an echo? Third, you seek support. Therapy isn't a sign of weakness, it's a tool. Trauma-informed therapy, EMDR, somatic work, these approaches help your nervous system catch up to your current life. And finally, you practice. You practice resting without guilt. You practice saying no. You practice believing that you're allowed to take up space, to have needs, to be imperfect.
Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about updating your relationship to it. It's learning that safety is possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. That calm doesn't always precede disaster. That rest isn't laziness. That you don't have to earn your worth every single day. It's learning that your needs matter, that asking for help isn't manipulation, that boundaries aren't cruelty, that you're allowed to prioritize yourself without becoming selfish. It's learning that you are not the problem you once believed you were, that the shame you carry isn't truth, it's a scar, and scars can be honored without letting them define you. This kind of learning isn't intellectual. You can't think your way into it. You have to feel your way through it, slowly, with setbacks, with patience. And that's okay. If you endured a lot as a child, you survived something that shouldn't have been yours to survive. You adapted in brilliant, painful ways. You became resilient, yes, but resilience isn't the same as healing. Resilience says, I can handle this. Healing says, I shouldn't have to handle this alone anymore. You were a child who did everything right in a situation that was wrong. You read the room. You managed the tension. You made yourself small or big or invisible or indispensable, whatever the moment required. And it worked. You made it. You're here. But you don't have to live that way anymore. The child you were needed those strategies. The adult you are now deserves something better. You deserve relationships where you don't have to perform, rest that doesn't feel dangerous, mistakes that don't feel catastrophic. You deserve to stop scanning for danger in every peaceful moment. You deserve to believe that you are worth protecting, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Healing from childhood trauma is some of the hardest, most meaningful work a person can do. It asks you to revisit pain you've spent years avoiding. It asks you to feel things you've numbed. It asks you to trust even when trust has hurt you before. But on the other side of that work is a life that feels like yours, a nervous system that can rest, a mind that isn't constantly bracing, a heart that can open without expecting to be crushed. It's possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. And you don't have to do it alone. If this resonated with you, know that you're not broken. You're not too much. You're not beyond repair. You're someone who survived something hard, and now you're learning how to do more than survive. You're learning how to live. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. There's more here for people like us, people who think deeply, feel deeply, and are trying to make sense of it all. Take care of yourself. You've earned that.